Hey G5, welcome back for your second assignment of the week, learning how to divide with fractions. This video will help you complete math assignment number 2 for the week of May 4th, and will help us understand how to divide whole numbers by fractions, as you can see in this problem here. We're going to do this by going over anchor task number 1 and math assignment number 2. So if you don't have that open already, open it up now. Get out a piece of paper, a pencil, and then something to write on so we can get started. I'm going to read through anchor task number 1 and then go through our anchor chart with different steps to solve these problems. You can follow along as I work out these problems on the screen and insert your answers to submit online. So to begin, the anchor task number 1 reads, Jenny buys 2 feet of string to make bracelets. She uses different amount of string to make each bracelet depending on how complicated the designs are. First, watch the video, which you're doing, then answer the following questions. So think about this. What do we know already? What do we need to find out? We know that Jenny starts with 2 feet of string. For each problem, we're thinking, what is the problem asking me? What information do I need to find out? Number 1, if Jenny uses 2 feet of string to make one bracelet, how many bracelets can she make if she has 2 feet of string? So for question number 1, we're always starting with 2 feet. But for the first bracelet, she needs to use 2 feet to make the bracelet. So we'll quickly go through these problems, even though we don't have a fraction yet, just to start what it looks like to use the steps. So for our first problem, we have 2 feet of string. Here I've drawn a number line to show you what it looks like to have 0 feet, 1 feet, and then 2 feet. But you could also draw boxes to help you understand this better. So the first thing we ask, what is the whole number we are breaking into groups? Well, we already decided that we have 2 feet of string, and we're seeing how many bracelets or how many groups we can make from that 2 feet. So that's step number 1. Now we go on to step number 2. What fraction is in each group? In this case, we haven't gotten to fractions yet, so we're just thinking to ourselves, what number is in each group? Well, we know that for each bracelet, which I'm going to write B here, we need 2 feet of string. So in each group is 2 feet. Okay, on to step number 3. How can you evenly divide your whole number into the number in each group? So again, our number in each group is 2 feet. The whole number we started with was 2. So how many groups of 2 can we make from 2 feet? So if I used all of my string, I would use 2 feet of string. So therefore I can only make one bracelet from 2 feet of string. If I was writing a division problem, I could write 2, my whole number, divided by the number in each group, which is 2. 2 divided by 2 equals 1. So the number of bracelets I can make for number 1A is 1 bracelet. Okay, now I'm going on the next problem. And I'm going to go through the same process again. So for 1B, it says, if Jenny uses 1 foot of string to make one bracelet, how many bracelets can she make if she has 2 feet of string? So again, I'll go through my steps. Number 1, what whole number am I breaking into groups? Again, I'm starting with 2 feet, so my whole number is 2. As I go, I'm going to write my division problem down here. So the number I'm breaking into groups is 2. Step number 2, what fraction, or in this case, what number is in each group? Well, to make one bracelet, or in one group, so one bracelet equals 1 foot. So for 1B, in each bracelet is 1 foot. Okay, step number 3. How can you evenly divide the whole number into your fraction or my number? Well, for this one, I have to go back and look at my problem. I have 2 feet of string here. If I want to take 1 foot and use 1 bracelet, how much of the string am I using? Think to yourself. Well, if I'm using 1 foot of string, that means I'm using this much to make 1 bracelet. So 1 bracelet would use that much string. So if I was writing my division problem, I would have 2 divided by 1, which is in each group. Now I go back and look at my model. If I make 1 bracelet, I use 1 foot. That's my first bracelet. If I use 2 feet, I can make a second bracelet. So let's say I cut the string here, I use this to make my first bracelet, then I cut the string here and I use this to make my second bracelet. So that means I can make 2 groups of 1 from 2 feet. So the answer to my division problem is 2. I can make 2 bracelets for 1 bead. I can check my work, finally, by multiplying. I can say, does 2 groups of 1 equal 2? And yes, it does, so my answer is correct. And now I can move on to 1C. 1C says, if Ginny uses half a foot of string to make 1 bracelet, how many bracelets can she make if she has 2 feet of string? So this is the first time we're getting to a fraction. So that we know for 1 bracelet, Ginny uses half a foot of string. Let's go back to our drawing. So again, we're number 1. What is the whole number we're breaking into groups? Again, we're starting with 2 feet of string. Step number 2, what fraction is in each group? So to make 1 bracelet in 1 group, we need 1/2 foot of string. Okay, step number 3. How can I evenly divide my whole number into your fraction? Well, again, my division problem is my whole number, what I'm dividing into groups, divided by the number in each group, which is 1/2. So let's look at my model. Here on my number line, where would 1/2 be? Think to yourself. If I was looking at my rectangles, what would 1/2 look like? So if I am between 0 and 1, 1/2 would be right here. If I was over here, 1/2 would just be half of this rectangle. So now I'm thinking to myself, step number 4. How many groups do I have of your fraction do I have? So if I make my first bracelet, I'm using this part of my string. How many more bracelets can I make if I'm using this part of my string to make 1? Well, I know also between 1 and 2, I have another 1/2. This would be 1 and 1/2. So I know I can make 1, 2, 3, 4 bracelets from this piece of string. That means that 2 divided by 1/2 equals 4. 2 divided by 1/2 equals 4. I can take 4 groups of 1/2 from 2. If I was looking at this model, I could say the same. I could look and see the same thing. I have 1 group of 1/2, 2 groups of 1/2, 3 groups of 1/2, and 4 groups of 1/2. Finally, step number 5, let's check my work. So if I have 4 groups of 1/2, that should equal the number I started with, 2. So 4 times 1/2, remember I'm multiplying the whole number times the numerator. 2 is the same thing as 2. So my answer is correct. If you're still confused, go back to the start of when we did this problem and try it again. Now we'll move on. 1D says, if Ginny uses 1/3 foot of string to make 1 bracelet, how many bracelets can she make if she has 2 feet of string? Try it on your own first. What's step number 1? What's step number 2? What's step number 3? Pause the video here. Now we'll go and do it together. So step number 1, what is the whole number I'm breaking into groups? Well, that hasn't changed this whole time. I'm always starting with 2 feet of string. Again, you can see it on the number line or in these 2 rectangles over here. Number 2, what fraction is in each group? So in this case, to make one bracelet, I need 1/3 foot of string. So in each group is 1/3. Okay, moving on. Step number 3. How can I evenly divide my whole number, which is 2, 1/3? So let's look at the model. How many groups of 1/3 can I take from this 2? Use the number line or use these rectangles. First, I'm going to find 1/3 on the number line. So if I take 1 and I divide it into 3 parts, I can find 1/3 right here. Again, I can do that for 2 as well. This would be 1 and 1/3 because I have 1 whole and then 1/3. And this would be 1 and 2/3. Looking at my rectangles, I can also divide these into 3 parts. And this would be 1/3. Now step number 4. How many groups of my fraction do I have? Well, I know that if I use this part of the string, I can make one bracelet because I need 1/3 foot of string to make one bracelet. So think to yourself, how many bracelets could you make using the whole string? Well, I'm just going to count. So I can make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can make 6 bracelets, so I have 6 groups of 1/3 in 2. So I know that my answer 2 would be 6. I can also look at my rectangles and count. I have 1/3 here, 2 groups of 1/3, 3 groups of 1/3, 4 groups of 1/3, 5 groups of 1/3, and 6 groups of 1/3. So my answer to 1D is 6. Again, I can check my answer by saying if I have 6 groups of 1/3, 6 times 1/3 would equal 6/3, which also equals 2. So I am correct. Finally, we'll end with 1E. Try it by yourself first, and then we'll work on it together. 1E. If Ginny uses 1/5 foot of string to make one bracelet, how many bracelets can she make if she has 2 feet of string? So again, we'll start with number 1. What whole number are you breaking into groups? Always starting with 2 feet. Number 2. What fraction is in each group? Well, I know that she needs 1/5 foot of string. So in one bracelet, we need 1/5 foot. Okay, moving on to number 3. How can I evenly divide my whole number into your fraction? Well, I know that I can divide 1 whole into 5 parts. So 1 part, 2, 3, 4, 5, so that I can have 1/5. Each of these parts is 1/5, so this is 2/5. So I'm dividing them into this. Okay? Step number 4. How many groups of my fraction do I have? Well, I know I started with 2. I divided it by 1/5. And I end up with, now I count my groups. So I have 1 group of 1/5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So I have 10 groups of 1/5. I can also count it here. 1. Finally, I can check my work. If I have 10 groups of 1/5, which equals 2, the number I started with, so I am correct.